Greetings, everybody! TPrower once again. Hope you all been doing well, and had a happy Easter, for those of you who celebrate it. I haven't really had anything planned video-wise for a while. The latest thing I put up for content is a new chapter of my ongoing feel-good story, Affection Therapy, on FIM Fiction. So, since I had nothing else to talk about, I figured I'd just give my thoughts on some movies, games, or TV shows I've experienced lately. I'll do my best to keep them free of spoilers. First off, the Super Mario Bros. Movie. No, not that one. This one. I know the live-action movie has its fans and defenders, but this is the Mario movie many of us have been waiting for. A lot of us were skeptical at first when we learned that Illumination would be behind this movie, and even more so when we first learned the voice cast. I don't think any of us would have expected the news that Chris Pratt would voice Mario, or Jack Black would voice Bowser, or Seth Rogen would voice Donkey Kong. However, the fact that Shigeru Miyamoto himself was overseeing production was a good sign. I prefer to give these first bits of news the benefit of the doubt, rather than already deciding the movie was going to suck based on the cast alone. The trailers were more than enough to dispel any lingering doubts I may have had, and I went to this movie optimistic and hopeful, and I was not disappointed. The visuals are breathtaking, and all the characters and environments genuinely look like they were pulled straight out of the games. The voices, one of the big points of doubt for many folks, were all excellent and well cast. And, no big surprise here, Jack Black's Bowser pretty much stole the show, just like Jim Carrey as Dr. Robotnik in the Sonic movies. Though that's not to say it lessened the impact of the rest of the cast, of course. The story may seem a bit simplistic, which isn't really old news for those of us who've played Mario games, but as far as I'm concerned, there's still a story. Mario and Luigi are plumbers from Brooklyn, wind up in the Mushroom Kingdom and get separated. Bowser's about to take over, and Mario teams up with Princess Peach and Toad to find a way to save the kingdom and Luigi. And along the way, Donkey Kong and Mario Kart are involved. Simple and straightforward maybe, but still a story. The characters themselves are all interesting and enjoyable, and I quite like the angle of Princess Peach being the one who helps Mario get used to how things work in the Mushroom Kingdom, even if it means Luigi becomes the one who needs rescuing this time. And then, of course, there's all the references to past Mario games and media, in the backgrounds, in the music, in the dialogue. Heck, they even brought back the rap theme song from the Super Show! This movie is one huge love letter to everybody who grew up on Mario games, and I couldn't be happier with how it turned out. And, from what I've been hearing, there's no question of there being a sequel. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what comes next. Next, Sonic Frontiers. This is one of the best Sonic games I've played in a long time. I'm glad to see that others share the same opinion. An open-world Sonic game is a great concept, giving the blue blur plenty of room to run around in and explore. Of course, an open-world map, let alone multiple ones, does lend itself to a lot of distractions when you're constantly sidetracked between defeating enemies, traversing through cyberspace, collecting rings and trinkets, finding lost Coco, and fishing with Big the Cat. The puzzles that open up more of the island to you aren't too challenging, if you know what you're doing. If you're ever confused on what to do, chances are, you might need to just give it a side-loop. I will say it's a good thing that there's a button prompt for homing attacks, because my reflexes aren't always quick enough to keep up with the varied ways of navigation, like jumping between rails or climbing walls, and it's very easy to throw yourself off course when going at Sonic speed. The combat is very rewarding. There's a lot of varied enemies to face off against, ones that can't be beaten with a simple homing attack, so the different attack moves you unlock make fighting enemies very satisfying. Whether it's the normal enemies you run into while exploring, the mid-boss battles that really test your skills, or the giant titans you battle as Super Sonic. One of the bigger positives about this game for me, however, is the story. It's one of the deepest, most emotionally driven plot lines I've seen in a Sonic game up to this point. I won't go into extreme spoilers, of course, but suffice to say, Sonic, Tails, and Amy arrive at the mysterious Starfall Islands because the Chaos Emeralds were drawn there. Tails, Amy, and even Knuckles all end up trapped in cyberspace, and Sonic must traverse the islands, collect the Chaos Emeralds, and find a way to free them, all while being monitored by the mysterious Sage, who keeps trying to discourage Sonic from his mission while remaining cryptic. Besides that, and the revelations this story alone gives us, there's also a lot of lore and continuity shared from other Sonic games and media that's on display here. Whether it's in familiar-looking levels from cyberspace, or past events and old friends and enemies mentioned in conversations between Sonic and Tails, Amy, and Knuckles. Those three undergo their own bits of character development as Sonic helps free them from cyberspace, as well as helping out the Coco they encounter. Even Dr. Eggman has a lot of character depth in this game, with further context given if you collect all of his memos from Big's fishing game, providing some nice insight into a mad scientist who once called himself a complicated guy. And all this is greatly helped by the excellent voice work of the cast. Roger Craig Smith, Colleen O'Shaughnessy, David Mitchell, Cindy Robinson, Mike Pollock, Kyle Hebert, and our newest addition, Ryan Bartley as Sage. Some people might think so much continuity and so many references might feel a bit gratuitous and too much like pandering to the audience. But honestly, I live for this kind of connectivity and cohesion. It makes Sonic's storyline up to this point feel more fluid and connected. The soundtrack is also great, but honestly, that's to be expected with Sonic games by now. All in all, even though I tripped up quite a few times during cyberspace levels or boss battles, this is a really fun game. And if it's a new direction future Sonic titles are taking, I'm all for it. Next, the murder of Sonic the Hedgehog. That's right, after 30 years, Sega finally decided to kill off Sonic. For April Fool's Day. In all seriousness, for a game made for April Fool's Day, this is very well made and enjoyable. For a basic outline of the game, it's a visual novel, where you take the role of a character you name yourself, working on the Mirage Express, a train reserved for events and parties. It's Amy Rose's birthday, and she's decided to hold a murder mystery party. As she, in the role of an intrepid journalist reporter, hunts for the truth, you get to work alongside Detective Tails as you try to answer the question, who killed Sonic the Hedgehog? Who is a ship's captain in this? Could it be Sheriff Knuckles? Vector the Butcher? Espio the Poet? Rouge the Business Tycoon? Blaze the Titan of Industry? Or Shadow the Locksmith? It plays very similarly to the Ace Attorney games, where you look around various locations, gather clues and evidence, or get nice bits of fluff dialogue, and then interrogate each of the characters in turn to find out the truth. These interrogations are interspersed with a mini-game of Sonic collecting rings, meant to symbolize you reaching your conclusion. They get a lot harder as the game goes on, but they provide options for ease of access if they get too hard for you. The artwork is excellent, especially with all the Sonic characters in their murder mystery attire. The writing is clever and witty, and there are tons of nods to past Sonic games, both visually and through character dialogue. Overall, it's a fun experience. If you want to check it out for yourself, it's free on Steam. Next, Pokémon Scarlet and Violet. Okay, I won't lie. Graphically, it's a bit unpolished. And even though I really like the terrestrializing mechanic, playing the Terra Raid battles online can be hit or miss for me, since sometimes it feels like my turn is outright skipped, and the timer drains way too fast. However, I had a lot of fun playing through the main story of this game. Exploring the region of Paldea offers a lot of great sights to behold, and a lot of Pokemon to encounter. The open-ended nature of this game, allowing you to explore however you want, and with 3 different storylines to complete, is excellent, but the caveat is that you might end up facing a gym, a Titan Pokemon, or a Team Star outpost they are underleveled for. Unless, of course, you live for that kind of challenge. The writing for this game is really good as well, and the story goes a lot deeper than you might expect. The new Pokemon introduced are very interesting, as they always tend to be for me, and I love that not only did Wooper gain a Paldean evolution that's just as lovable as Quagsire, but that Pokemon like Girafarig and even Dunsparce finally gained their own evolutions. By the end, my final team in Scarlet was Selena the Meowscarada, Jewel the Pawmot, Sodius the Garganical, Boggs the Clodsire, Sir Blaze the Armarouge, and Slick the Wugtrio. While the game may have a few glitches or bugs that could have been ironed out, but which I'm sure provide unexpected moments of hilarity for players, this was still one of the best Pokemon games I've played yet, and I'm looking forward to the DLC storylines that they announced not too long ago. Lastly, what I want to talk about is the Owl House and its final season. This was such a great show, but it was cut off shorter than it could have been thanks to executive meddling. The same could be said for the DuckTales reboot, but that show still ended on a very strong and satisfying note. Similarly, with what time Dana Terrace and the rest of the show's cast and crew had, even making references to how little time they had left to actually show stories that could have been, they definitely made up for it with a final season comprising 3 double-length episodes to bring the story of Lucino Seda, Ida the Owl Lady, the King of Demons, and so many other well-written and endearing characters we met along the way to a powerful, emotional close. I won't go into too much detail if you want to check the show out for yourself and haven't yet, and honestly, going into full detail would take way too long, but I will say, it's a very wild ride. This show went a lot deeper than one would expect from how it started. A teenage girl finding herself in a strange new world and deciding she fit in a lot better there than at home. Making friends with witches and strange creatures, and learning to live in a world bursting with the strange and magical. Taking up residence with a sassy outlaw of a witch, an egotistical wannabe tyrant who's also the best of good boys, and whatever Hootie is. I've heard much the same kind of story praise from folks who watched Amphibia, although I have yet to see that in full myself. Maybe I should, since I've been hearing a lot of good things about it. Everything about the Owl House is fantastic. The voice cast, the writing, the characters, the music, the humor, a plethora of moments and scenes that'll make you smile, cry, or even both, and the animation, especially when it kicks up a notch, becomes a lot smoother and more visually stunning, whether it's for a fight scene, a dance, or even a kiss. And like shows like Friendship is Magic and Steven Universe, the Owl House is very thought-provoking and insightful in its writing, especially for those who feel like they don't know where they belong, or what they're meant to do with their lives. If there's one thing the Owl House teaches well, it's that no matter who you are, no matter who or what you want to be, you're never alone, and you do belong, and do have a place in the world. So never forget that. Dana Terrace, and everyone who made the Owl House possible, thank you for such a fantastic show. And that, my friends, brings me to the end of what I wanted to talk about. Apart from my usual randomness on Twitter, or my occasional addition to my affection therapy story, or the Chronicles of Anacordia, and I do still want to make a sequel to Tough Cookie and Syntax now that I think about it, I'm still trying to dabble in more story readings or even song covers, or attempted song covers as the case may be. I'm trying to decide what I want to do, depending on what you all would want to see. Random chapter excerpts, whole stories, one-shots, or even just more random voice work, Like when I made those videos of different speeches and monologues. The same goes with what songs I want to try and record myself singing. Because there's only so many songs I can actually sing. My voice can only take so much of the time after all, and I don't have as many opportunities to record as I used to. Well, we'll see. But for the moment, thanks for listening to my random rambles that had nothing to do with ponies this time around. Until next time, see ya!